Welcome to week 15 of the Smart Gamble here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be watching or listening. I'm Norm, of course, joined by Lily and CJ for the final stretch, guys. Can you believe it? There is less than a month left in the season, regular season at least. And Christmas is next week.
It always depresses me when a season comes to an end. So I know we got a couple of weeks left, but I'm getting more and more depressed as the season goes on because I know eventually it's going to be all over. So
it just started, right?
Seemingly.
It just started. Like, I can't believe it's already like I out here in the Poconos, at least we're recording on a Saturday morning. It doesn't feel like Christmas is next week because it's raining. But yeah, it is. We're pretty much went through. We got Christmas next week. I believe we'll be off next Saturday due to the holidays. But we're in the home stretch here, and what do we get to talk about? It's almost 2022, and what's the big story this week in the NFL but COVID?
Yeah, the whole COVID situation. I really think. I mean, I know that Baker Mayfield from Browns was talked about the fact that there's less testing now. They tend to take a little bit more of a relaxed tone toward that, but I think part of it too is on the players. I think you guys have to be a little more careful indoors, with the mask wearing and so forth, prevention. So I think the players have to take some of that blame as well.
Yeah, I mean, 20 of the Cleveland Browns are out. It's crazy.
There are over 150 players, if you include practice squad players, in the NFL that have tested positive this week alone.
That is crazy. That's crazy.
And as you mentioned, the Browns are one team that's got almost like half of their squad. The Rams are up there as well. And that's why we've seen, 3 games now moved. One moved from today to Monday. So we'll have a doubleheader on Monday. And then 2 moved from Sunday to Tuesday. So we got a doubleheader on Tuesday, which...
absolutely crazy.
To me, obviously, the circumstances are terrible. I hate that this is still going on. But as a selfish football fan, hey, we get doubleheader on Monday and we get football on Tuesday.
That is true. That is true.
Like, all right,
spread it out.
More days with football. If you want to take the silver lining positive out of it. But we'll talk about how that kind of affects week 15 from a gambling standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint in a little bit. But real quick, we'll touch on Thursday night's games as we usually tend to do here. I mean, who doubted the Chiefs ever, right? Not me.
Well, tell you one thing. First of all, I'll tip my hat to the Chargers. That team looks pretty scary right now. That Justin Herbert kid is a horse. And they had the Chiefs backed up, and they really should have won that game in regulation. And as soon as that game went into overtime, and you knew and the Chiefs won that coin toss, I said this game is over. I knew it right from that moment that the game was over.
It was one of those first team to get the ball is going to win, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Crazy.
Yeah, Travis Kelce slipping through that defense at the end there. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, hand up, I was one of the, I said it multiple weeks here, like, when we started this podcast, that, like, I don't know, there's something wrong with the Chiefs. And there absolutely was. But here we stand, week 15, and they're the top of the AFC. Obviously, the Patriots and a couple other teams still have their games to play this week to kind of meet them up there. But, like, it's all back to normal, right? Like, it's kind of the Chiefs that we expected have now finally showed up. But you're right. The Chargers right there in that division are not going anywhere still.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I picked the Chargers to win anything as far as in the playoffs goes, but I think that they're a team where you just simply don't want to play them in the playoffs because they can beat you.
They are going to be a hard out for sure. And speaking of overtime games, we've had a couple of them in recent weeks. Talking about last week, Lily, that was a heartbreaker for you as well.
Yes, it was. No bikini this time, though.
The bet has been fulfilled. The bet has been fulfilled.
Yep. Once and done.
One was a one and done, but
One and done.
But still, I mean, the Bucks. That's who are the 2 Super Bowl teams? We got the Chiefs and the Bucks, and what do they do? How do they get to those places? They pull out games like they do in overtime, and even covering the spread. And that I think I'd feel more out of the 4 teams we're talking about. I think that was the worst loss for and not the worst loss, but the more untimely loss for the Bills there.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a tough one to swallow. The Bills, they stayed right with the Bucks, and they really were right there. And I think it was really a defensive breakdown that last
Yeah.
play. There was no safety behind that one pass receiver, and as soon as he got past the one guy, that was it, off to the races. So that was a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That was a tough pill to swallow there for the Bills, who were trying to keep neck and neck with the Patriots there. And they kind of fall back. I think they're still going to make the playoffs, I think. But we'll get into the power rankings and how last week's kind of crazy stuff changed it up a little bit. But let's jump into fantasy, which fantasy playoffs start a lot of leagues. If they didn't start last week, they start this week. And what a week to start with all the COVID stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll be listening to your fantasy picks a lot this week because I right now I'm in the playoffs starting this week as well. So I'm hoping to get a couple of tips from you to see if I can get a couple of late moves.
Right. And that's what it is. You got to be on your toes this week. So,
all right. So Norm, who are some of the sneaky starts this week?
Yeah, sneaky starts this week. I love these two picks, so I hope they pull through, but I feel very confident in these two guys. James Robinson for the Jaguars. We didn't talk about it in the open. I forgot to bring it up. Urban Meyer out of Jacksonville.
Yes.
Hey, there's a job opening in Jacksonville. Hey, I hear real estate's pretty cheap, and it's nice time of year. So hey,
usually.
So Lily, you coach the offense. Norm, you coach defense, and I'll be the owner in the box up there. With the free drinks.
So James Robinson's gotten like the short end of the, I don't know if he said something about Urban Meyer in practice or something like that. If Urban Meyer was kicking him in practice, I don't know what was going on, but Robinson was not getting the touches he deserved. Obviously he'd been banged up a little bit, but he's now back healthy. This is one of the first weeks in a little bit. He has been completely taken off the injury report. And Carlos Hyde, the guy that for some reason had also been getting touches more than him sometimes in the backfield, is out with concussion. I also love teams playing the first week after their coach has been fired. There always seems to be a rejuvenated fire under that squad. I love James Robinson to get more touches and be productive this week against a fairly vulnerable defense in the Houston Texans. And on the other side, Detroit Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown has had a phenomenal last 2 weeks. 18 catches, 154 yards, and a touchdown over his last 2 games. Has really become that safety blanket for Jared Goff for the Lions. And not to mention TJ Hawkinson, Quentin Cephas, DeAndre Swift, and Jamal Williams, all banged up right now, all unlikely to play tomorrow. That is someone who, just based on targets alone, might even still be available in some of your shallower leagues. If you're only like a 10-team league with a somewhat shallower roster, this is a guy that might be able to be picked up still. Pick him up, even against a very good Cardinals defense. I still love him just based on quantity alone to have a good day.
Cool.
Sounds good.
What about players to avoid this week, Norm?
Players to avoid anyone with COVID. I'll talk about that in a second too, but a couple players I will point out to maybe avoid. Chase Edmonds, if you've been a Chase Edmonds owner this season, you've had some production still from him, even though James Conner's been scoring all those touchdowns. He still has had a pretty good productive season when healthy. He is now again back healthy, likely to play tomorrow, but I don't love him coming back from injury against the Lions. What? You don't want to play the Lions? James Conner is still James Conner.
Yeah.
And Chase Edmonds is coming back from an ankle injury in a game that the Cardinals will likely be up early in and not having to worry too much about their lead. I think they're going to bring him back, get him a couple touches, get him, game ready again, get him a couple hits, but I don't think they're going to give him too many targets, too many touches. I don't think the production value is going to be there for Chase Edmonds on Sunday. This is not the week to start him. Have him all right, I can take him off the IR. He's healthy. He got in. He didn't get hurt again. Next week's probably the week to play him if you're still alive in the playoffs. Obviously, that doesn't help you this week. If you can make it to next week, he might be the guy to start next week. Now, one more guy real quick playing today. in that great game that we've got between the Colts and Patriots. Jacoby Myers has really shown that he can become, that top receiver in New England to be Mac Jones' go-to guy. I don't love him playing against the Colts defense. The Colts defense has been the second best defense against wide receivers fantasy-wise over the last 5 weeks, and I don't see this game being a high-scoring game. I think I would avoid Jacoby Myers. I hate when there's a Saturday game. I hate having that one game to watch and just focus in on all right, this guy needs to get me points. Just based on stats and sanity alone, I think I would sit Jacoby Myers this week.
All right.
All right.
If you want any more tips, with COVID too, if you've got someone that maybe, tested positive and you're hoping can get in your lineup on like Tuesday, I probably wouldn't roll those dice. Just if you're left with no other options, you'd rather have, a guy that you don't want to start putting up like 4 or 5 points than that guy you're hoping for gets, tested negative and is able to play on Tuesday, putting up a goose egg. So that's one more thing I'll throw out there. Any other tips or anything like that, thesmartgamble@gmail.com. All right, let's jump into some power rankings, Lily. It's been a crazy week already.
It has been. And probably part of the reason Urban was fired is because Jacksonville is number 32.
Yeah,
That would do it.
that would definitely do it.
But yeah,
And
let's
picking
go.
players to practice.
And it seems like the top 3 are just interchangeable every week. This week, Green Bay's on top. They were
Okay.
previously number 1 last week as well. Tampa Bay was previously number 3. Now they're number 2. Number 3 is Arizona, previously number 2.
Okay.
Number 4, Kansas City, previously number
So
5.
they are. Okay.
Yep. Number 5, New England, previously number 4. So they dropped a spot.
Mhm.
Number 6, the Rams, previously number 8. Number 7, Dallas Cowboys, previously number 6. I see laughing there. I see happiness.
I'm just
I would take issue with a couple of those picks. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. All right. Number 8 is Indianapolis, previously number 9.
Mhm.
Number 9 is the Chargers, previously 10. And number 10 is Buffalo, previously number 7.
Right. So they dropped a bit there.
Yeah, figured that.
All right. So not as much change as I thought there would be. And I guess obviously Thursday's game with the Chiefs beating the Chargers isn't included in these power rankings yet because this is after week 14. But it's kind of funny how all right, here's the NFC and then the AFC follows. We think the top of the NFC is all the way better than the top of the AFC. Still.
Yeah, and the teams that I would kind of question in that one, I think Dallas is a little bit too high.
Yeah.
And the Rams, as from a talent standpoint, are about as talented as any team in the league. But up until this past week, they really hadn't beaten very many teams with winning records. So I think they're probably a little bit overvalued right now for me. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but I'm not quite sure they're quite as high. Is it 6 or 7 they were at this week?
I believe they were 7.
7th, yeah. I wouldn't
Yep.
quite put them that high, but again, that's my personal opinion.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
you definitely have, and I think we're all a victim to it to some extent. There's definitely like a recency bias when it comes to these. Sometimes it's like that. You have that big win or you have that big loss, you're going to jump more in the rankings, at the end of the week. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny that I don't think the Cowboys should be that high. I think they're just playing in one of the worst divisions there is and getting some wins out of that. And I don't see them doing much in the playoffs, but I think it'll be very interesting to see next week's rankings
Yes.
after what the Chiefs just did. And then Patriots Colts. So the Colts were what, 8th, you said, Lily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Probably a little bit
Yeah.
low.
probably a little bit
Probably a little
low.
bit
And even if they go out and lose to the Patriots, if it's a close game tonight, I think we're all in agreement. We've kind of been talking about them for the last month or so.
I
We
love
all
the
love the Colts.
Love the Colts.
Yep.
I love the way these guys play. They run it first. They play great defense. They're going to be tough in the playoffs, and hopefully
Yeah.
they'll get there. And they're going to be really, really tough.
yeah, obviously tonight's game is going to have a lot to do with where they fall in that playoff race. I even with a loss tonight, I think they still have a pretty decent chance of making it. But it could be a playoff preview. It could be a playoff preview
That's true.
with that game, and which I think we will touch on a little bit more later on. But let's get into Lily's daddy of the week after last week.
Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
Well, let's go back to Dallas, first of all. With the quarterback index, Dak Prescott is number 9 now. So
Ooh,
blow me Michael Irvin.
that's a heck of a. He was top 5 last week. That's a heck of a drop,
Yeah.
Yep.
which deservedly so. Dak, I mean, I'll say.
Well,
I know.
again, he's one of those guys. If he doesn't have a good running game to accompany his ability to throw the ball, he is not quite as good. I mean, I like the guy, but if Zeke is not running it really well and Paul is not running it really well, and he's forced to throw it, not quite as good.
With
Yeah.
all those weapons.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so my daddy of the week, Minnesota's running back, Dalvin Cook.
Ooh.
209 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm.
He's my daddy.
Absolutely went off on that in that Thursday game. I mean, if you were leading that win, if it was week 14, you need a win. If you're winning in your fantasy league and you had Dalvin Cook, go donate to his charity or something like that. I know that's a popular thing. I did it last year with Alvin Kamara, who put up 6 touchdowns on Christmas Day and won my league and a lot of people other than their leagues. That's one of those performances you remember years from now if you're a fantasy owner that needed it.
Yeah, like Norm, I had Kamara last year, and he won it for me as well. I won my league last year with that one performance by
Yep.
Kamara. So
Those performances stick in your memory a lot.
definitely.
All right, Lily. On the other end, you might remember these performances too. If it's like a quarterback you're going to mention, who's your shit ass player of the week?
A quarterback.
Oh,
I do love him. I think he's got a lot of potential. Trevor Lawrence.
okay.
Mm.
Let's see. His quarterback rating was 35.5. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
And then 24 of 40 for 220 yards, 24 of 40 receptions for 220 yards, 221 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in a 20-0 loss to the Titans.
Yeah, I mean Jacksonville obviously hasn't been a very good team all week. They really hit rock bottom last week, and again I think it's ironic the timing of Urban Meyer's firing and Trevor Lawrence actually was advocating for James Robinson. You mentioned earlier. I think he'll get a lot more touches this week, as you mentioned, Norman. I think that Trevor Lawrence probably has a little bit of that monkey off his back, but I think there's some connection there for sure.
Yeah.
I think if anyone watched Trevor Lawrence at Clemson in college, like the talent is absolutely there. He's the prototypical
Got the goods.
quarterback, yeah. And I just hope, because we've seen it with quarterbacks, maybe not quite to his caliber, but we've seen top quarterbacks, number 1 overall quarterbacks, get ruined by the situation they go to. And I hope that them firing Urban Meyer 14 weeks into Trevor Lawrence's professional career was quick enough that he isn't ruined already. That he doesn't turn into the next David Carr, like
Exactly.
it remains to be seen. We've seen Peyton Manning had, he's thrown, I don't know, is Trevor Lawrence, how many interceptions has he thrown? If I could pull that up real quick, because I know Peyton Manning, believe it or not, owns the
It's a record, right? Rookie record.
the interception record by a rookie. The most interceptions thrown by a rookie ever in their rookie season was Peyton Manning, of all people. And Lawrence isn't going to get there. It was 23 by Manning, and he's only thrown 14 this year. So I don't think he's going to get there unless he has a couple more weeks where he throws 4. So we've seen worse rookie performances, so I still have confidence in Lawrence.
Yeah, good quarterback. He's got the skills. I saw him all during his years at Clemson as well, and I can back you up on that one. He was a monster. So he'll be fine.
Definitely shit ass this week though.
Yeah, not this week, but he'll be fine.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to getting into some picks and whatnot. And to lead us off, Hayden. What's Hayden's pick this week? Or is he going to be
Okay.
gracing us with his present this week?
No, he's not.
All right, he's
He's
like
laying over there. He doesn't want to be bothered.
I get it. I get it.
My
It's one of
little
those
chubber.
days. It's one of those days.
My little cat chubber. He is actually picking Baltimore.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yep,
All right, that's an interesting pick.
against Green Bay. 4.5 points spread.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, if he's going to
He's
be
iffy.
playing or not.
And the Ravens have been iffy in general over the past month or so. So
Oh,
I know,
absolutely.
CJ, you've been very appointed to bring up that the Ravens. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny because the very beginning of the year they looked like one of the best teams out in the league in the
Yes.
entire league, and I
Absolutely.
wouldn't say right now that they're one of the best teams. They're far from it.
Yeah,
Right.
you would have thought they would be at least top 10.
Exactly.
Top-
Exactly.
Yeah, they
Top
were.
five.
They were not. They're 8-5. Like they're not. They're not doing terrible this year. They just haven't been that powerhouse. And yeah, you mentioned they were not mentioned in that top 10 power rankings.
Nope. They
Which
are
I
actually
don't
at 16. Can you imagine that?
Ooh,
Wow.
wow,
Who would have ever thought?
They've tumbled.
that's technically, if you're going to say 7 teams make the playoffs in each conference, that's technically like an out of a playoff spot, which I don't think they are. If they play playoff started today, but I don't disagree though. That's the thing.
I agree with you, Norm. They don't deserve to be in that top 16. I mean, they are pretty much ranked where they deserve to be ranked.
So
So
we'll see
what happens.
Yeah, we'll see if Hayden shuts us all up and they surprise. And they don't got to win. They just got to cover. They don't got to win. They just got to cover. And they've been playing a lot of close games just because of their play style. But all right, so Hayden's pick is taking the Ravens and the points against the Packers.
Yeah.
Before we let's jump into I know Lily's pick. Everyone's waiting for it coming up in a minute, but let's jump into CJ. I know you want to talk some over under some totals.
Yeah, hey, Las Vegas, we're all about the numbers out here. Las Vegas is point spreads, is over unders, is prop bets, and so forth. A couple of games I'm looking at this week. Patriots Colts, great game on paper tonight. I think it'll be a great game in general. It's being played indoors, so weather shouldn't be a factor. Both these teams run the ball very well. Both these teams play good defense, and that might make you think that I would go with the under. I'm actually going to go the over in this one. I think both teams are very, very efficient. They get into the red zone and they score. I don't think either team's going to make mistakes. You won't see any pick sixes tonight. So I would go slightly over in this game.
Right. Now, some interesting stats with the over-unders. For non-overtime games, there's 110 to 80 favoring the unders. That's a 57.9% in non-overtime games.
58% of NFL games that don't go into overtime.
Wow.
Under.
Or under.
That's got to be a big change in the last few years. I know in the previous years, CJ, you can probably back this up out there in Vegas. You probably know more, but I feel like the overs had reigned the last few years.
Yeah, I agree.
I
with
would
that
agree.
too.
I would agree, especially in a passing league where offense has really been emphasized.
Yeah.
Those overs have been coming in a lot. So I think you're right. I think that this is definitely an anomaly this year where more games are going under.
Yep, and for overtime games, 13-4 favoring the overs, which is a 76.5%.
So
Hit rate, huh?
rating.
Wow.
if you're holding that over ticket and it gets to overtime, you're good.
You're good.
Which usually usually you're rooting for anyway if you got the over.
That is true.
Yep.
But speaking of that Patriots Colts game, I completely agree with you, CJ. I don't think they're going to fly over the total, which I believe is 45.5.
Right.
I agree with you. I would be taking the over in that one. The Colts actually top in the league with their game with hitting the over. They've hit the over 61.5% of the time, which is the most out of any team in the NFL this season. Both good defenses though, and that's I guess why the total is kind of low. But I do believe that I would take the over as well on this one.
And what about Washington and Philly at 44?
Washington, Philly. This game is one of those games that was moved to Tuesday because of COVID.
Yep.
this game played outdoors, and of course it's December, but I don't think weather's going to be a factor looking at the forecast. But this game is a division game. December, the playoffs are on the line for both these teams. This one feels like a 20-17 kind of a game for me, low scoring, running and defense. So I will take the under in this one.
All right.
I think the numbers say under for this one for sure. If you look at the points scored and points against for both of these squads, it kind of leans to around like pretty much 2017, like you just said, CJ. But like you said, it's moved to Tuesday. A lot of we don't know exactly who all is even going to be playing for both squads in this game. The weirdness of that makes me want to lean towards the over, just the kind of unpreparedness and whatnot. So I'm going to go against the numbers on this one. I'm going to take the over.
Okay.
Philly.
All right.
Nice. Okay. What about 49ers and Falcons at 46.5?
49ers. That team, they've been scoring a lot of points lately. The last 4 games, they scored 30, 34, 23, and 26 points a game. Atlanta hasn't been a bad team this year. They're 6-7, and Matt Ryan seems to have found a little bit of his swerve. I like this game to go over.
Nice.
So something I probably haven't brought up in this show before is my disdain for Matt Ryan. This goes back, to a local sports talk show I used to do in the Falcons' run up to their Super Bowl against the Patriots, where they blew that 28-3 lead.
Yeah, that was horrible.
And I've been a detractor for Matt Ryan even before that, and especially since that. I think Matt Ryan lays an egg against a pretty good 49ers defense. And I think you're right, CJ. The 49ers probably one of the more underrated offenses, right? Because, of course, George Kittle is George Kittle, but he's been banged up a lot of this season. Who's the quarterback? I don't even think the 49ers know sometimes. Is it Garoppolo? I mean, yeah, when he's healthy, sure. But I love their offense, and I love them to put up points. I think the Falcons don't bring up their end against that 49ers defense.
Okay.
And they barely get under. I'm going to take the under 46.5 on this one.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of yin and yang here. I like that. Love it.
Yeah. All right.
49ers are ranked 11, by the way.
Okay.
I like that. You know what? I really do. I don't think that this is the year that they make any big playoff push just because of that quarterback situation. But I've been loving what they've done in San Francisco for the last few years since they brought in John Lynch. So, All right, CJ, what game should we stay away from this week?
Stay away game for me is obvious. I think it's the Browns Raiders. It's COVID part of it with the Browns. The Raiders are pretty banged up. They don't have the good tight end Darren Waller. They don't have the best tackler in Denzel Perriman. The Browns are a schizo team, regardless of what you think of, a football or non-football. They are just a schizo team. I stay away from this one. You get those emails in your inbox about, hey, click this link and have $1 million and give me your credit card. Stay away from those. Stay away from the Browns and Raiders.
I would stay away from Philly and Washington too.
Okay.
That would be one of my stay away games.
Kind of same logic though with that COVID. You don't know, I completely agree. Like I said, stay away from the fantasy players. Like those COVID games. Just stay away as much as possible if you can. Like social distance from them. Just social distance from them.
And wear a mask.
Hey, if you gotta pick the game, wear a mask. Cover your nose, wear a mask if you're picking that one. All right. Well, Lily's pick is coming up in any minute now, but CJ, you've been on having some hot picks as well. What do you got for this week?
This week, I mean, there are several games that have really big, hefty point spreads. Miami 9.5, Buffalo -12, Arizona 13. And typically bettors out here in Vegas tend to bet more with favorites, but with these big point spreads, I would say take an underdog if you think can cover that spread. I think the Giants are going to cover against the Cowboys this week. 10.5 points. I think that's way too many points in the division game in December. I think the Giants will cover that 10.5.
I agree.
I actually,
what do you think, Norm?
I hate picking the Giants games, whether I think they could cover or not. I hate picking my own.
It's your heart over your head, huh?
I can't. I have a tough time separating. I have a very easy time separating them fantasy wise and not picking Giants players like earlier than they should. But when it comes to like point spreads and whatnot, I have a tough time separating that because I feel like I know too much about them. But 10.5 is a lot of points, and despite the woes that the Giants have had, they've been close in some games. So
Yeah.
and a divisional game, I tend to agree with you. I think that's a solid pick right there. All right, well, the star of the show is up. It's time to get lucky with Lily. What do you got for your lock of the week?
All right, you guys ready for this?
Well, this is like CJ said.
My seatbelt is fastened.
This is compared to last week where there were so many good games we talked about. That was a whole segment of how many good games there were. It was the complete opposite this week with CJ mentioning all the point spreads.
It is.
Which leads for a lot of underdogs for Lily to take. Where's she going?
I'm going with the game of the week for sure. I'm going with New England to cover against Indianapolis. 2.5 points. I think Belichick is going to pull it out. He's going to do it. He's going to make sure they do it.
Yeah, well, hey. Again, that's one game I wouldn't touch here in Vegas either, but I'll be watching it. But I think you have a great point, Lily. I think Belichick in these kind of games, he comes up big. He makes his players play bigger than really what they might be. So yeah, I like the pick.
I 100. I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, to cover. Not they win outright, but to cover.
Yeah. So here's why, because you mentioned Belichick. The Colts are, I wouldn't call him a one-trick pony, but Jonathan Taylor is he's in the MVP conversation for what he's doing, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And what has Belichick been the best at for over 2 decades now is taking your one best thing away from you. And if he can shut down Jonathan Taylor, that's a formula for the Patriots' success right there. So,
yeah, I'm
sure he's been doing a lot of research on how to do that.
Take the ball out of Jonathan Taylor's hands and make sure that you ask Carson Wentz to beat you. And I would rather have Jonathan Taylor beat you, if I'm a Colts fan, than try to put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands. So I think that's a really, really good point.
100% agree. So that's and you know what though? We shouldn't have expected anything less. When Lily's making a pick, she goes big. Like she's not gonna go take the Jaguars and
the obvious game. Right?
Yeah, like
go big or go home.
She's prime time picking spotlight games, and that's what you can expect here from the Smart Gamble. That's week in, week out, and it's like like an 80% clip or something ridiculous like that. She's gonna win. So let's take it to the bank. That's Lily's pick for this week. She's taking the Patriots there to cover. So that does it for week 15, guys. Anything to wrap up here? All right.
Practice safe sex, wear a condom, and wear a mask. That's my advice to all those Cleveland Browns players. Wear a mask, wear a condom.
Where did Norm go? We lost Norm.
We lost our host of the show here, folks.
I was not expecting that one. Merry Christmas next week as well.
Yes.
Yes. I believe we'll be off next week. So, but you know what? The best way to know when a new episode does drop or not is to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you are, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. That's how you know when a new episode drops, and the best way to find out anything here from the Smart Gamble. Of course, you can reach out to us for more picks, more advice, or just general feedback. If you want to talk to us, you want to chat out and reach out to us. The Smart Gamble at gmail.com. Once again, the Smart Gamble at gmail.com. For CJ, for Lily, I'm Norm. Week 15. Hopefully we make through all of COVID. We got more days with football this week. I hope everyone enjoys it.
All right.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
We love you. Thanks for watching.
Take care.